The nurse checking my blood pressure leaned close and whispered, "When the doctor comes in, say you're someone else." I started to ask why, but she cut me off. "We don't have time." At that moment, the doctor entered holding something strange. "Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from." The blood pressure machine beeped loudly around my arm, but something felt very wrong about this Wednesday afternoon. "Mrs. Helen Carter?" the nurse asked, her voice shaking a little. I nodded, sitting back on the crunchy paper covering the exam table. At 67, I'd been coming to Greenfield Medical Clinic for checkups my whole life. The same place where my husband got treated for his bad knee and where our daughter Sarah was born. The bright lights above me buzzed like angry bees, making everything look too white and strange. The nurse was someone I'd never met before. She looked about 35, with red hair tied back tight. Her name tag said M. Rodriguez RN. She put the cuff on my arm like she'd done it 1,000 times, but I could see her hands were shaking. "How are you feeling today?" she asked, looking quickly at the closed door. "Just fine, dear. Here for my yearly checkup. Dr. Bennett said I should come even though I feel perfectly healthy." I smiled, trying to make her feel less worried. "First day on the job?" "No, I've worked here 3 years." She squeezed the balloon thing and the cuff got tight. Her eyes looked right into mine with a look that scared me. "Mrs. Carter, you need to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say." Before I could say anything, she moved her face close to mine, so close I could smell her coffee breath, and whispered, "When the doctor walks in, tell him you're someone else." My heart started beating very fast. "What do you mean?" "We don't have time to talk about it." The door flew open so hard it hit the wall with a bang. Dr. Bennett walked in fast, but he wasn't by himself. Behind him came my neighbor Patricia, dressed up fancy in an expensive-looking white dress. Her brown hair was perfect, and her smile looked fake, like the smile people make when they're pretending to be nice. "Helen," Patricia said loudly, rushing toward me. "How are you feeling, sweetie?" The nurse's fingers squeezed my wrist hard, not checking my heartbeat but warning me. I looked at her, saw the scared look in her eyes, and something deep inside me that was older than thinking made me say, "I'm sorry, but I think you're confused. My name is Barbara Mills." Dr. Bennett's eyes got really big. He looked at his computer tablet, then at me. "Mrs. Carter, this isn't. I'm Barbara Mills," I said again, stronger this time. My voice didn't shake even though my brain was spinning like a washing machine. "I'm here to talk about my sore back." Patricia's pretty face changed for just a second, showing something dark and mean before the fake worried look came back. "Helen, honey, you're confused. Don't you remember? We talked about this appointment just yesterday." "I've never met you before in my whole life," I said, looking right at her. "And I don't like being called the wrong name." The nurse stepped forward. "Dr. Bennett, I think there's been a mix-up with the schedule. Mrs. Mills was supposed to be here at this time. Maybe we should check the computer." Dr. Bennett looked at all of us, clearly not understanding what was happening. I'd been coming to see him for 20 years. He knew my name, my history, my husband who died, George. But something in the nurse's serious look made him stop and think. "Patricia," he said carefully, "maybe we should go outside and check the appointment book." "But that's crazy. That's my neighbor Helen Carter. She lives at Oakwood Senior Apartments in Building C. She's clearly having problems with her memory, which is exactly why I brought her here today." Patricia's voice got louder with each word, sounding almost like she was acting in a play. "Ma'am," I said coldly, using my old teacher voice from when I taught 2nd grade for 35 years. "I don't know who you are or why you're trying to say I'm your neighbor, but I promise you I'm perfectly fine in my head. I live by myself at 215 Elm Street, and I've never been to any senior apartment building." The lie came out smooth and easy. I'd really lived at Oakwood Senior Apartments for 5 years, in a small 1-bedroom place where I could see the park. But something about this moment told me I needed to lie, and I trusted that feeling. Dr. Bennett cleared his throat. "Let me check the computer system. Nurse Rodriguez, could you please take our patient to the waiting area while I figure this out?" "Of course." Nurse Rodriguez took off the blood pressure cuff and helped me down from the table very gently, like she was protecting me. "This way, ma'am." As we left, I heard Patricia's voice getting louder. "This is ridiculous. She clearly has memory problems. She doesn't even know who she is." The second we turned the corner into the empty hallway, Nurse Rodriguez's hand on my elbow got tighter. "Keep walking. Don't look back. There's a side door at the end of this hall. Go through it." "What's going on?" I whispered, my heart banging against my chest. "Not here." She moved me quickly down the hall, past exam rooms where I could hear other patients and doctors talking, past a cart full of medical supplies, past a janitor mopping the floor who didn't even look up. The side door led to a small storage room, and she pulled me inside, locking it behind us. "Sit down," she said, and her professional mask cracked, showing real fear on her face. "Mrs. Carter, I'm risking my job and maybe more by telling you this, but I can't just stand here and let it happen." "Let what happen?" My hands were shaking now. I held them together tight. "4 days ago, your neighbor Patricia came to the clinic. She met with Dr. Bennett and Dr. Wilson from the mental health department. She brought papers, medical records, statements from your daughter, even a signed letter that looked like it was from your old doctor. Everything made it look like you have bad memory problems, dangerous behavior, and that your brain isn't working right." The room started spinning. "That's impossible. I'm perfectly fine. Pay my bills. I drive my car. I help at the animal shelter every Tuesday and Thursday." "I know. I saw you there last week. You were helping bathe the new puppies and telling stories about your old dog Biscuit. That's why when I saw your name on today's schedule with a note saying you needed a mental health check and possible emergency hospital stay, I knew something was very wrong." "Emergency hospital stay." The words felt like a punch. "You mean locking me up?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. "They were planning to say you're mentally incompetent today. Dr. Bennett was supposed to test you and Dr. Wilson was waiting nearby. Your neighbor brought all the paperwork already filled out. Once you were locked up, even for a little while, she had papers ready to become your legal guardian." My mouth went dry. Guardian? That meant control over my money, my apartment, my whole life. My little apartment at Oakwood that George and I had saved for. The small amount of money I had left, my mother's jewelry. Why would she do this? But I knew why. I'd always known Patricia wanted things. She'd married my friend's son Kevin for his money, not for love. I'd seen how her eyes looked at my apartment when a real estate person said the building was worth a lot of money last year. How she tried to get Kevin to talk to me about selling. And Kevin, my dear friend Martha's son, had seemed distant since he married Patricia 3 years ago, always choosing what she said over what I said when we disagreed. "There's more," Nurse Rodriguez said quietly. "I heard her on the phone 2 days ago when she didn't know I was in the supply closet. She was talking to someone about how once the old lady is taken care of, they can start the process right away. And then she said something that made my blood feel like ice. Kevin doesn't need to know everything. He'll believe whatever I tell him about Helen's condition." A wave of sickness went through me. My friend's son. Was he part of this or was she tricking him too? Who was I supposed to say I was? Yes. Barbara Mills. She's a real patient coming next week. I gambled that Dr. Bennett wouldn't remember her name right away. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through something. "But Mrs. Carter, you need to understand how serious this is. The papers she gave them are incredibly detailed. Someone helped her make fake medical records, mental health reports, even incident reports saying you've been found walking around confused. None of that is true. I know, but it's your word against official-looking papers with your daughter's signature. Have you fallen down or gone to the hospital recently?" Thought back. I twisted my ankle 3 months ago stepping wrong on a curb. They took me to the emergency room for x-rays. Her face got dark. "That visit is in her papers, but she changed it to make it sound like you were wandering around confused and fell. Did anyone see what really happened?" I was alone. I'd been shopping for groceries and just missed seeing the curb. It was embarrassing but perfectly normal. But even as I said it, I realized how easy it was to twist the truth. An old woman alone, falling in a parking lot. In Patricia's hands, it became proof that my mind was going bad. What do? I asked, hearing my voice shake. First, you leave right now. Use the exit by the X-ray department. Your neighbor is still arguing with Dr. Bennett about the mix-up, but she'll figure out what happened soon. She wrote something on a prescription pad and gave it to me. This is my personal phone number and the name of a lawyer, my aunt. She helps older people who are being taken advantage of. Call her today, this afternoon if you can. Tell her everything. Taking advantage of older people, I repeated quietly. That's what this is, Mrs. Carter. Financial abuse with the goal of stealing your property and money. It's a serious crime. She stood up, checking her watch. You have maybe 10 minutes before she starts looking for you. Do you have your purse and car keys? I nodded, holding my handbag tight. Inside was my wallet, my keys to the old Toyota parked near the entrance, and my phone. Everything I needed to get away, though the word felt too dramatic even though it fit perfectly. Go home. Lock your doors. Don't let anyone in, especially not Patricia or Kevin. Not until you've talked to the lawyer. And Mrs. Carter. She met my eyes and I saw the same strength there that I'd once used when dealing with difficult parents and school principals who wanted to cut art class. Write down everything. Every phone call, every visit, every conversation. The more proof you have, the better. She unlocked the door and looked out. Clear. Go now. Down the hall, turn left at X-ray through the double doors. Your car is in lot D, right? Right. I stood up on legs that felt wobbly but held strong. 67 years of living had taught me that sometimes you have to move even when you're terrified. I slipped out the door and walked as fast as I could without running. Past the X-ray department where a technician was looking at pictures with a patient. Left at the double doors. Through the imaging waiting room where 4 people barely looked up from their phones. The afternoon sunshine hit me like a warm hug as I pushed through the exit. The parking lot looked normal and safe in the daylight. I found my Toyota right where I'd left it, got in with shaking hands and locked all the doors. Only then did I let myself feel the full weight of what had just happened. Someone had tried to have me declared crazy. My own neighbor had made fake papers, changed medical records, and planned to steal everything George and I had worked for. And she'd almost won. I pulled out my phone to call the lawyer Nurse Rodriguez had told me about, but it rang in my hand before I could dial. Text message from Kevin. Helen, where are you? Patricia says you ran away from the doctor's office. She's really worried. Call me right away. My finger hung over the reply button. How much did he know? Was he part of this or was he being used? Another text came through, this time from Patricia herself. Helen, I don't know what happened, but we need to talk. You're not well and I'm only trying to help you. Please come to our house so we can discuss this calmly. Not well. The words made ice go down my back. That's how it would start. Concerned neighbors worried about poor Helen's failing health. And by the time anyone questioned it, I'd be locked away somewhere. And my apartment would be sold to whoever paid the most. I started the car, my hands steadier now. Anger was replacing fear, and with it came clear thinking. I'd spent my life teaching young kids to think carefully, to question things, to stand up for the truth. I wasn't going to give up now. But as I pulled out of the parking lot, I saw Patricia in my rearview mirror, bursting through the clinic's main doors. Even from far away, I could see the anger on her face as she looked around the parking lot. She spotted my car just as I turned onto the main road. Our eyes met for one quick second, and what I saw there confirmed every terrible thought. This wasn't about concern or care or being neighborly. This was about money and property and greed. And my neighbor would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. The question was, what would I have to become to stop her? The 30-minute drive back to Oakwood Senior Apartments felt like driving through a bad dream where every familiar thing had turned scary. I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see Patricia's silver Honda following me. But the city street stayed normal except for a bus going downtown and Mr. Jackson's truck heading to the store. My phone rang 8 times during the drive. Kevin. Patricia. Kevin again. I let each call go to voicemail, my stomach hurting with each buzz. Finally, I switched it to silent and focused on the road, on the yellow line that had guided me around town for decades. Oakwood Senior Apartments appeared like it always did when I turned onto Maple Street. The brick building with a nice garden, the playground where kids played after school, the benches where residents sat to watch the sunset. But now I looked at it with different eyes, seeing not just the place where I'd lived peacefully for 5 years, but a prize worth a lot of money that someone was willing to destroy me to take. I pulled into my parking spot and sat in the car for a moment, hands still on the steering wheel. The October wind rustled through the trees, blowing leaves across the sidewalk. Everything looked peaceful and normal, but I knew better now. Inside, I locked every door and window in my apartment, something I'd never bothered with during the day. The place felt different, violated somehow, even though nothing looked disturbed. I made myself a cup of tea with trembling hands and got out the slip of paper Nurse Rodriguez had given me. Maria Santos, attorney. The number was local. I dialed before I could lose my courage. Santos Legal Services, a kind-sounding woman answered. Hello, I need to speak with Maria Santos. It's urgent. My name is Helen Carter, and I was told to call by her niece, Maria Rodriguez. One moment, please. Soft music played for 40 seconds before a warm, strong voice came on. Mrs. Carter, Maria called me from the clinic 30 minutes ago. She explained what's happening. Are you somewhere safe? The kindness in her voice almost made me cry. I'm home at my apartment alone. Good. I need you to listen carefully. Based on what Maria told me, you're dealing with a very planned-out scheme to take advantage of you. The fact that they've already filed fake medical papers means they're far along in this process. How soon can you get to my office? I looked at the clock on my kitchen wall. 2 o'clock. 40 minutes, maybe less if traffic is good. Come to my office at 3:30. Bring any financial papers you can gather quickly. Bank statements, apartment lease, your will if you have one, power of attorney documents, medical records, anything about your money or health. And Mrs. Carter, don't tell anyone where you're going. Not Kevin, not any neighbors, nobody. You think Kevin is involved? The question hurt to ask. I think we don't know what he knows or doesn't know, and until we do, we assume nothing and trust nobody. You pause. Do you have a safe place to stay tonight, somewhere other than your apartment? The question scared me. You think I'm in danger? I think that people who make fake documents and try to illegally lock someone up are capable of getting more desperate when their plan fails. They'll realize you've become aware of what they're doing and they might act desperately. Do you have somewhere to go? My brain raced through options. My sister lived in California. My closest friend, Dorothy, had moved to Florida last year. The only people nearby were church friends and old students. Nobody I could burden with this craziness. I'll figure something out, I said. 3:30. Suite 208, Riverside Professional Building downtown. Park in the public lot on 3rd Street, not the building's parking. And Mrs. Carter, if anyone tries to stop you from leaving your apartment, call 911 immediately. Do you understand? Yes, I whispered. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone. 15 missed calls now. 4 voicemails. I forced myself to listen to the first one. Helen, it's Kevin. I don't know what happened at the doctor's office, but Patricia is really upset. She says you didn't recognize her and ran away. Please call me back. We're worried about you. His voice sounded truly concerned, but I heard something else underneath. Frustration, impatience. Or was I imagining things now, seeing threats everywhere? The second voicemail was Patricia. Her voice sweet like honey. Helen, sweetheart, I know you must be confused and scared. Dr. Bennett explained that confusion is common with your condition. Please let us help you. Kevin and I just want what's best for you. We're coming to check on you, okay? We should be there around 4. My blood turned to ice. They were coming here. I checked the time, 2:30. I had 1 hour to gather what I needed and leave. I moved quickly through the apartment, grabbing my metal box from the bedroom closet. Inside were the important documents. My apartment lease, my will, George's death certificate, bank statements. I stuffed them into my biggest purse along with my laptop, phone charger and medications. From the kitchen drawer I got the small camera George had given me years ago. I might need to take pictures of things. As I was packing, I noticed something that made me stop cold. The drawer of George's old desk in the living room was slightly open. I never used that desk. I kept it just as he'd left it, a way to remember the man who'd been my partner for 42 years. But the drawer was definitely open about half an inch. Had I left it that way? I walked over slowly, as if the desk might suddenly do something terrible. When I pulled the drawer all the way open, my heart sank. The drawer that had held George's personal papers, his journals, letters, photographs from when he was in the army, was completely empty. I quickly checked the other drawers. Also empty. Someone had been in my apartment. Someone had taken George's things. But when I tried to remember the last time I'd looked at this desk, weeks ago, a month, I came in here so rarely, avoiding the sad memories it brought up. Unless they needed something specific from those papers. But what? My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. Helen, why aren't you answering? We're leaving now. Be there in 40 minutes. Please don't go anywhere. 40 minutes. I ran to my bedroom, threw some clothes in an overnight bag, grabbed my toothbrush and medications. As I rushed around, my eye caught on the photograph on my nightstand. Kevin at 10 years old, smiling big with missing front teeth, holding up a picture he'd drawn of a rainbow. When had that sweet boy become a man who'd sign papers to have me locked up? Or had he? I still didn't know for sure what Kevin knew or believed. Maybe Patricia had tricked him too. Maybe she'd shown him the fake medical reports and convinced him his mother's friend was truly getting sick. I wanted desperately to believe Kevin wasn't capable of being deliberately cruel. I was carrying my bags to the door when I heard the sound of a car in the parking lot. My stomach dropped. They were early. I watched from the window as Patricia's silver Honda pulled into a visitor spot. Kevin got out from the passenger side, tall and handsome in his work clothes, looking so much like his mother Martha had looked. Patricia stepped out in her perfect white dress, her face arranged in a look of concern that didn't reach her eyes. I backed away from the window, my brain racing. The front door was locked, but they had keys. Kevin had keys to my apartment. He'd had them since I moved in case of emergencies. Helen, Kevin's voice called out, followed by the sound of a key in the lock. Helen, we're here. Please don't be scared. I grabbed my purse with the documents and my overnight bag and moved quickly toward the bathroom. There was a window there that opened onto the back alley, and from the alley, a path that led to the community garden. George and I had used that path hundreds of times. Helen, sweetie. Patricia's voice now, high and sweet and fake. We just want to talk to you, honey. I climbed onto the toilet seat, pushed open the bathroom window and squeezed through. At 67, I wasn't as flexible as I'd been at 30, but fear is a powerful motivator. I dropped into the alley with a thud that hurt my knees, pulling my bags after me. I heard footsteps inside the apartment. She's not in the living room. Check the bedroom, Kevin said. Her car is still here, Patricia replied. She has to be somewhere in the building. I ran in a crouch toward the community garden, feeling ridiculous and terrified at the same time. A 67-year-old woman sneaking through alleys like a criminal. But I heard the window open behind me, heard Patricia's sharp voice. Kevin, check the garden. I'll search the building. I made it to the garden and slipped behind the tool shed, pressing myself against the wall. The familiar smell of dirt and tomato plants usually comforted me, but now my heart pounded so hard I thought they must be able to hear it from the building. Through a crack between boards, I watched Kevin walk toward the garden. My friend's son, my neighbor's child. He looked troubled, running his hand through his hair the way he did when stressed. At the garden gate he paused. Helen, if you're out here, please come out. Nobody's trying to hurt you. Patricia showed me the medical reports. You've been having episodes, forgetting things, getting confused. We just want to help you get the care you need. Medical reports. So he'd seen the fake papers. He believed them. I know it's scary to admit you need help, he continued, his voice softer now. But ignoring it won't make it better. Mom would want me to take care of you. The mention of Martha's name felt like a slap. How dare he use his mother's memory to justify this? Kevin stepped into the garden and walked slowly between the raised beds where I'd planted vegetables all summer. If he looked to his left toward the shed, he'd see me pressed against the wall. But his phone rang, Patricia's ringtone. Yeah. No, she's not in the garden. Are you sure? Okay, I'm coming back. He left, and I counted to 40 before moving. Through the shed's small window, I could see both of them standing by the building's entrance now, Patricia gesturing wildly, Kevin shaking his head. They were arguing about something. This was my chance. I slipped out the back of the garden and ran toward the street. My overnight bag banged against my side and my purse strap dug into my shoulder, but I didn't stop until I reached the bus stop 2 blocks away. I climbed on the bench with none of the grace I'd had at 30, breathing hard. From here I couldn't see the apartment building. The afternoon bus came 5 minutes later. I paid cash and took a seat near the back, keeping my face turned toward the window. My phone buzzed in my purse. More calls, more texts, but I ignored them. Took 20 minutes to get downtown. I got off 3 blocks from the lawyer's office and walked quickly, keeping my head down. The small town that had been my home for my entire life suddenly felt hostile, as if every passing car might have someone looking for me. Santos Legal Services was on the 2nd floor of an old brick building. I took the stairs slowly, my overnight bag feeling heavier with each step. Suite 208 had a frosted glass door with gold letters. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The receptionist, a woman about 50 with kind eyes, looked up. Mrs. Carter. Yes. I'm sorry I'm early. Ms. Santos is ready for you. Right this way. Maria Santos's office was filled with law books and framed certificates. She stood as I entered, a tall Hispanic woman in her 40s with dark hair and an air of quiet strength that immediately put me at ease. Her handshake was firm and warm. Mrs. Carter, please sit. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? Water would be wonderful, thank you. As the receptionist brought in a bottle of water, Maria settled behind her desk and opened a yellow notepad. Maria Rodriguez gave me the basics, but I need to hear everything from you, starting from the beginning. Don't leave anything out, even if it seems small or unimportant. I told her everything. The nurse's warning, the fake medical documents, Patricia's phone call about taking care of the old lady, my escape from the apartment. When I mentioned the stolen papers from George's desk, her pen stopped mid-note. You're certain they were taken? I don't know exactly when. I avoid that desk because it makes me sad. But they were there 8 months ago when I was looking for George's military papers for a veteran's benefit question. The drawer was full then, and now it's completely empty. She leaned back in her chair, fingers pressed together under her chin. Mrs. Carter, I'm going to be very direct with you. What you're describing is sophisticated and planned out ahead of time. The fake medical documents alone need either a lot of money to pay professionals or inside access to medical record systems. The timing suggests they've been planning this for months, maybe longer. But why George's papers? He died 5 years ago. What could be in there that matters now? That's the question we need to answer. He pulled out a form. First things first, I need you to sign this agreement to hire me. My fee is $200 an hour, but given the urgency and Maria's recommendation, I'm prepared to work on this case for a flat rate of $4,000 to start. Can you manage that? $4,000. A lot of money, but I had it in my savings. Yes. Good. Second, I need copies of everything you brought. My assistant will scan them while we talk. She pressed a button. Jenny, could you come in, please? While Jenny scanned my documents efficiently, Maria asked more questions. About Kevin's relationship with Patricia. About my apartment's value. I guessed maybe $300,000 with how the market was. About my health. Excellent except for normal aches and pains of getting older. About my finances. Comfortable with George's pension, my small teacher's retirement and savings. You mentioned a real estate company approached you about the building last year, Maria said. Tell me about that. A company called Greenfield Properties. They wanted to buy the whole apartment building to tear it down for condos. They offered the owner a lot of money. I was against it. The building has been home to seniors for 30 years. We have a community here. How did Patricia react when you spoke against it? I remembered the dinner after I'd made my opinion known at the residents' meeting. She was furious, though she tried to hide it. She said I was being sentimental and foolish, that the money could help everyone find better places. Kevin agreed with her, said I was getting older and should consider moving somewhere with more help available anyway. We had a terrible fight. Did Kevin ever mention anything about money troubles, debts? The question surprised me. No, he's a computer programmer. Makes good money, or so I thought. Why? Maria pulled up something on her computer and turned it to face me. Because while you were on your way here, I had my investigator run a quick background check on Patricia Martinez. That's her maiden name. She has some very interesting history. The screen showed documents, credit reports, court papers, news articles. Patricia filed for bankruptcy 9 years ago, 3 years before she married Kevin. She had over $150,000 in credit card debt from what appears to be a shopping problem. The bankruptcy was cleared, but look at this. She pointed to a newer document. Credit cards opened in the last 3 years, all with both their names. Combined balance, $280,000. My hand flew to my mouth. That's impossible. I'm afraid it's not. And here's where it gets more interesting. She pulled up another document. 4 months ago someone, we're assuming Kevin or Patricia, took out a loan using your apartment building's value as security. The loan was for $1.2 million. The room tilted. They can't do that. I never signed anything. No, but someone forged your signature. The loan was from a private lending company that, frankly, operates in a questionable way. The interest rate is terrible, 20%, and the first payment came due 3 weeks ago. It wasn't paid. My vision blurred. They forged my signature on a loan. That's fraud. Serious fraud. But here's the problem. Proving forgery needs handwriting experts and often criminal charges, which takes time. Meanwhile, the lender can foreclose. And guess who's listed as the backup beneficiary if something happens to you? Kevin, I whispered. Exactly. If you were declared incompetent and Patricia gained guardianship, or if you were locked up long-term, or, she paused delicately, if you passed away, Kevin would inherit, and with you out of the way, there'd be nobody to contest the loan's legitimacy. They could sell the property rights, pay off the debt, and pocket the rest. The water bottle in my hand shook. Kevin did this. My friend's son signed off on forging my signature. We don't know what Kevin knows or doesn't know. It's possible Patricia forged both signatures. It's possible she's manipulated him into believing you're actually sick and this is necessary. Or, she trailed off, the implication heavy in the air. Or Kevin was involved. Or my friend's son had chosen his wife's greed over his mother's friend's well-being. Or the boy I'd known since he was born, the child I'd loved and helped raise, had become someone I didn't recognize. There's more, Maria said gently. My investigator found something else. Patricia was married before, 17 years ago. Her husband was a man named Frank Morrison, 72 years old at the time. He died 8 months into their marriage. Died how? Heart attack, according to the death certificate. But Frank's son from his first marriage contested the will. He claimed Patricia had isolated his father from his family, convinced him to change his will in her favor, and may have contributed to his death by not giving him his heart medication. The case was settled privately, but the son's lawyer filed a statement claiming elder abuse and financial exploitation. Ice flooded my body. She's done this before. The charges were never proven, and the settlement included a promise not to talk about it. But yes, there's a pattern here. Patricia targets vulnerable people, gains their trust or marries into their family, manipulates situations for money, and removes obstacles. I need to call Kevin, I said, reaching for my phone. I need to tell him what she is, what she's doing. No. Maria's voice was sharp. Mrs. Carter, think. If you call Kevin now, what will happen? Either he already knows everything, in which case you've warned them that you're aware of the scheme, or he doesn't know, and Patricia will convince him you're having paranoid delusions, which is exactly what her fake medical documents claim. Either way, you lose. Then what do I do? Just hide while she destroys everything? No. We build a case. We document everything, and we prepare for the confrontation that's coming. She pulled out her phone. First, I'm calling a colleague who specializes in emergency protective orders. We need to prevent them from accessing your apartment or bank accounts. Second, we need you somewhere safe tonight. Do you have any friends or family they wouldn't think to look for you with? Thought hard. Then it came to me. My old teaching partner, Grace Williams. She retired 10 years ago and moved to Riverside Village. Kevin doesn't know her well. She started working with me after he graduated high school. And she lives in a retirement community with security gates. Call her. Don't tell her everything. Just say you need a place to stay for a few days because of some family complications. The fewer people who know details, the safer everyone is. I dialed Grace's number with shaking fingers. She answered on the third ring. Her voice as cheerful as it had been when we taught together. Helen. What a wonderful surprise. How are you? Grace, I hate to ask, but I'm in a difficult situation. Could I possibly stay with you for a few nights? I'll explain everything when I see you, but I really need somewhere away from my apartment. To her credit, Grace didn't ask a million questions. Of course. Come whenever you're ready. You remember my address. I'll GPS it. Thank you so much. After I hung up, Maria handed me a business card. This is my personal cell phone. Call me immediately if anything happens. Any threats, any contact from Kevin or Patricia, anything at all. I'm filing the protective order paperwork tonight. And tomorrow morning we'll go to the police and file a fraud report about the forged loan documents. Will that be enough to stop them? Her expression was serious. Honestly, I don't know. They've already committed multiple crimes. People who've gone this far don't usually stop just because legal obstacles appear. They get more desperate. Pause. Mrs. Carter, I need you to understand something. You're in real danger. Patricia has a history of being connected to suspicious deaths. And right now, you're the only thing standing between her and several $100,000. You think she'd actually try to hurt me? I think that when people get desperate, they're capable of terrible things. And you escaping today made them very desperate. As I left her office with Jenny walking me to the elevator, my phone buzzed. Against my better judgment, I looked at the screen. A text from an unknown number. Helen, we need to talk. This is getting out of control. Meet me at Riverside Diner tomorrow morning at 9. Come alone. Don't involve lawyers or police. This is about George, and there are things you need to know about your husband before you make accusations you'll regret. My hand clenched around the phone. Things I need to know about George. What did Kevin or Patricia know about my dead husband that I didn't? Jenny noticed my face. Mrs. Carter, are you okay? I don't know, I said honestly. I really don't know. Because now, in addition to everything else, I had to wonder what secrets George had kept from me. And were they worth killing for? Grace Williams's cottage in Riverside Village was exactly what I expected, decorated nicely with plants in every window and photographs from her 40 years of teaching. She welcomed me with a hug and a cup of chamomile tea, asking no questions until I was ready to talk. I told her some of it. Not everything, not the stolen papers or Patricia's history of suspicious deaths, but enough about the forgery and the attempted guardianship that her expression shifted from concern to anger. That woman should be arrested, Grace declared, her old principal voice coming out. And Kevin, I can't believe he'd allow this to happen to you. I don't know what he knows, I said, the words tasting bitter. Part of me hopes he's being tricked. The other part knows that not knowing at a certain point becomes the same as being part of it. Grace squeezed my hand. You stay here as long as you need. The security gate won't let anyone up without my permission. And I've got your back, Helen. That night I barely slept. Every sound in the unfamiliar cottage made me wake up startled. At 4 a.m. I gave up and opened my laptop, staring at that text message. Meet me at Riverside Diner. This is about George. What could George possibly have to do with any of this? He'd been a simple man, a librarian, a gardener, a loving husband. He'd kept our home running, volunteered at the food bank, sang in the church choir. What secrets could a man like that have? But then I remembered those empty drawers. Someone had wanted those papers badly enough to steal them. Someone knew something about George that I didn't. At 7:30, I made a decision. I would go to the diner, but I wouldn't go unprepared or alone. I called Maria Santos's cell phone, hoping she woke up early. She answered on the first ring, sounding fully awake. "Mrs. Carter, I was about to call you. We have a problem." My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Kevin filed a missing vulnerable adult report last night. He told the police department you have dementia and left your apartment in a confused state. He gave them copies of the forged medical documents. There's now an active search for you. Can't you tell them it's false? Show them the fraud. I've already contacted the police chief, but here's the issue. Those medical documents look real. They have Dr. Bennett's signature, also forged we're assuming, and they're on official clinic letterhead. Until we can prove they're fake, which needs forensic analysis that takes time, the police have to treat Kevin's report as real. They think they're looking for a vulnerable, elderly woman who might be in danger. So I'm what, a fugitive? You're a missing vulnerable adult. If police find you, they'll likely take you into protective custody and contact Kevin as your next of kin. At that point, he could push for an emergency psychiatric evaluation. Closed my eyes. He sent me a text last night asking me to meet at Riverside Diner this morning. Says it's about George. Silence on the other end. Then, it's a trap. I know. But Maria, what if he really does know something about George? Something that explains why someone stole those papers. Then he can tell it to a judge. Mrs. Carter, you cannot meet with him alone. That's exactly what they want. I won't go alone. I want you there, hidden, and I want to record the conversation. Another pause. Tennessee is a one-party consent state for recording. You can legally record any conversation you're part of without the other person knowing. But if this goes wrong, it's already gone wrong. At least this way, maybe I'll get some answers. She sighed. All right. Riverside Diner, you said 9 o'clock. Yes. I'll be there at 8:30. I'll sit somewhere with a clear view of your table. Buy a small recording device from Miller's Electronics on 4th Street. They open at 8. Tell them what you need. Keep it in your purse and make sure it's running before you go inside. After we hung up, I sat in Grace's guest room and tried to prepare myself for seeing Kevin. My friend's son, the child I'd watched grow up, who'd cried at his mother's funeral and promised to look after me. When had we lost each other? At 8 o'clock I drove Grace's car. She'd insisted I borrow it, to the electronics store Maria had mentioned. The young clerk sold me a digital voice recorder no bigger than a lipstick and showed me how to use it. I practiced in the parking lot until I was confident. Riverside Diner sat on Main Street, a cozy place from the 1960s that served the best pancakes in town. I arrived at 8:55 and sat in the parking lot watching. Maria's car was already there. I'd memorized the make and model. Through the window, I could see her in a corner booth, apparently reading a newspaper. At exactly 9 o'clock, Kevin's car pulled in. He got out alone, no Patricia, and my heart hurt. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes and wrinkles in his shirt. For a moment, he was just Martha's son again, and I wanted nothing more than to hug him and have everything be okay. But then I remembered the forged loan documents, the missing vulnerable adult report, the plan to have me locked up. I checked that the recorder was running, took a deep breath and walked into the diner. Kevin saw me immediately and stood up. Helen, thank God. I slid into the booth across from him, keeping my purse close. You said this was about George. He blinked at my cold tone. Helen, first I need to know you're okay. You've been missing for almost a whole day. Patricia and I have been so worried. Save it, Kevin. I know about the forged medical documents. I know about the loan against my apartment building. I know about Patricia's history with her previous husband. His face went pale. What are you talking about? Don't pretend you don't know. Doesn't suit you. Now tell me what this meeting is really about, or I'm leaving. He looked around the diner nervously. The morning crowd was small. A retired couple, a construction worker at the counter, Maria in her corner booth. Nobody paying attention to us. Helen, listen to me. You don't understand what's happening here. George. He stopped, struggling with something. George wasn't who you thought he was. My fingers tightened on my coffee cup. Explain. Do you know why he never let anyone look through his papers? Why he kept that desk locked? It was his private space. I respected that. It was because he had another family. The words hit me like a punch. What? Before he met you, George was married. He had a wife and a son. The marriage ended badly. I don't know all the details, but he left them, changed his name legally, started over. You knew him as George Carter, but his real birth name was George Brennan. I couldn't breathe. That's impossible. I knew everything about George. His childhood, his family, his time in the army. Fabricated history, Helen. Found out 8 months ago. I was helping you look for those VA papers and found the original documents hidden in a false bottom of the drawer. Marriage certificate to a woman named Alice Brennan. Birth certificate for a son named Michael. Divorce papers that were never finalized because George just disappeared. The diner seemed to spin around me. Why wouldn't he tell me? I don't know. Maybe he was ashamed. Maybe he thought you wouldn't marry him if you knew. But Helen, it gets worse. Kevin leaned forward, his voice dropping. That son, Michael Brennan. He's been looking for George for years. He hired private investigators, and 4 months ago he found out George was dead and that you inherited everything. So what? He has no legal claim. We were married for 42 years. But they never legally divorced, which means technically George's first marriage might still be valid, which would make your marriage. He couldn't finish the sentence. Bigamy, I whispered. I'm saying it's complicated. And Michael Brennan has filed a lawsuit claiming he's George's legitimate heir, and that you have no legal right to the apartment or money. His lawyers are aggressive, Helen. They're going to drag George's name through the mud. And yours too. My mind spun. George, a bigamist. A man who'd abandoned a wife and child. It couldn't be true. But even as I rejected it, pieces started clicking into place. His reluctance to talk about his past before we met, the locked desk. His insistence on keeping certain documents private, the way he'd always preferred cash, avoiding paper trails. The papers from his desk, I said slowly. Did you take them? Kevin had the decency to look guilty. Patricia and I took them about 3 months ago. We were trying to figure out how bad this was, how much trouble you were in. We found letters from Michael's lawyers, documents George had hidden, proof that he knew Michael was looking for him. And instead of telling me, you decided to what? Forge loan documents. Try to have me declared incompetent. No. God no, Helen. I didn't know about any of that. The loan, the medical documents, that's all Patricia. When I found out about George's past, I told her, and she said she'd help me protect you. She said we needed to sell your apartment share quickly, before Michael's lawsuit went public, because once it did, the property value would crash. She said she knew people who could speed things up. By forging my signature. I didn't know she was going to do that. His voice rose, drawing looks from the other diners. He lowered it again. I swear, Helen. I thought she was just talking to real estate agents, getting ready for when you agreed to sell. I didn't know about the loan until 2 days ago when the lender called me because the payment was late. And the medical documents, the attempted guardianship. His eyes filled with tears. She told me you were having episodes. She showed me reports from Dr. Bennett about confusion and memory problems. She said you'd been wandering around at night, forgetting where you were. She convinced me you needed help. And you believed her instead of asking me directly. Because George's secrets made me question everything. The anguish in his voice was real. If George could lie to you for 40 years, if your whole marriage was built on lies, then what else wasn't real? Patricia kept saying you were in denial, that you couldn't face the truth about George, that it was causing mental breaks. I wanted to believe him. Everything in me wanted to believe Kevin was a victim of manipulation rather than a co-conspirator. But trust once broken is hard to fix. Where's Patricia now? Yes. At home. She wanted to come with me, but I told her I needed to talk to you alone. Because you still have some decency left, or because she told you to gain my trust. He flinched. You really think I'm that far gone? I think you signed papers that gave your wife access to my life. I think you filed a missing vulnerable adult report that painted me as senile. I think whatever you believed about your intentions, your actions have been clear. Kevin buried his face in his hands. I've ruined everything, haven't I? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Maria. Check local news now. I pulled up the news website on my phone. The headline made my blood run cold. Local woman wanted in connection with animal shelter theft. Helen Carter, 67, is being sought by authorities after allegedly stealing $15,000 in donation funds. Carter, who suffers from dementia, may be confused and dangerous. What is this? I shoved the phone across the table to Kevin. I never touched the shelter funds. I'm just a volunteer. Kevin read it. His face going from confused to horrified. Oh no. Oh God, this is Patricia. This has to be. He grabbed his own phone and started typing frantically. What are you doing? Calling the shelter director. They need to know this is false. He stopped staring at his screen. They're not answering, Helen. It's Wednesday morning, someone should be there. A terrible understanding came over me. She's framing me. First the guardianship attempt, now criminal charges. If I'm arrested, if I'm in jail, she gets everything. Kevin's voice was hollow. She plays the concerned neighbor, takes control of your affairs, sells the apartment to pay back the stolen money, and pockets the rest. My phone buzzed again. Maria. Leave now. Police just got an alert about your location. Someone called in a tip. I stood up. I have to go. Helen, wait. Kevin reached for my arm, but I pulled away. Did you know about this? The false theft charges. No. I swear on my mother's grave. On whatever grave George actually deserves. Helen, please let me help you. You want to help. Go to the police and tell them everything. Tell them about Patricia's manipulation, the forged documents, all of it. Testify against her. She's my wife. And I was your mother's best friend. I looked at him, this man I'd known since birth, and saw someone I didn't recognize anymore. Choose, Kevin. Right now. Choose who you are. I walked out of the diner without looking back. Maria was already in her car, engine running. She pulled up beside me. Get in. Grace's car is compromised. They'll be looking for it. As I climbed into her passenger seat, I saw Kevin stumble out of the diner behind me, phone pressed to his ear. His face showing devastation. Where are we going? Yes. Somewhere they won't think to look. And Mrs. Carter, whatever happens next, it's about to get much worse. Patricia just declared war. She wasn't exaggerating. My phone lit up with alerts. A warrant had been issued for my arrest. The local news was running my photograph with the caption, Armed and Dangerous. Armed and Dangerous. A 67-year-old retired teacher who'd never even gotten a parking ticket. Maria, I said quietly. Tell me the truth. Can we win this? She didn't answer right away, which was answer enough. We can try, she finally said. But Mrs. Carter, you need to understand. Patricia has outplayed us at every turn. She's thinking 3 steps ahead, and she's ruthless. Whatever secrets George kept, Whatever legal complications your marriage might have, she's using them to destroy you. So what do we do? Her jaw tightened. We stop playing defense. Tomorrow we go on the attack. Maria drove us to a small motel 50 miles outside town, the kind of place that still took cash and didn't ask questions. I paid for 3 nights under a false name while Maria made phone calls from the parking lot, her expression growing more serious with each conversation. When she finally came to my room, she carried a cardboard box that she set on the small table. "I've been busy while you were at the diner," she said. "My investigator worked all night. What we found changes everything." She pulled out a folder. First, the good news. George's first marriage was legally ended. He didn't just disappear. He filed for divorce in 1974 and it was finalized. The records were in a different county under a slightly different spelling of his name, which is why Michael Brennan's lawyers haven't found them yet. Your marriage to George was completely legitimate. Relief flooded through me. So Michael has no claim. Correct. But here's where it gets interesting. She pulled out more documents. Michael Brennan exists, and he is George's son from his first marriage. But he never filed any lawsuit against you. In fact, he doesn't even know George is dead. I stared at her. What? The lawsuit Kevin mentioned, completely fabricated. Patricia created fake legal documents to convince Kevin that your assets were under attack. She used Michael's existence, which she discovered through those stolen papers, to create an entirely fictional legal crisis. But why? Why go to such complicated lengths? Because Kevin would never agree to defraud you without a good reason. Patricia needed him to believe he was protecting you from a real threat. The fake lawsuit gave her that leverage. Maria pulled out another document. And there's more. That loan for $1.2 million, it's real. But the lending company is owned by a shell corporation. My investigator traced it through 4 layers of ownership. Want to guess who the ultimate owner is? Patricia. Her brother, technically. Same last name before she married. Martinez. They've run this scam before in 3 other states. Create a crisis, forge documents to secure a loan, use the borrowed money to fund their lifestyle, then either force the sale of the property or wait for the victim to die so they can inherit and cover their tracks. My hands clenched into fists. She loaned herself my money using my forged signature, and charged herself 20% interest, which she'll claim as income. It's actually brilliant in a sociopathic way. Even if you prove the signature was forged, she can claim it was Kevin who forged it, not her. She's protected herself from direct liability at every turn. And the animal shelter funds. The theft charges. Maria's expression darkened. That one's trickier. Someone did steal $15,000 from the shelter donation account. The shelter director noticed it missing yesterday afternoon. The shelter's accountant, who happens to be a friend of mine, confirmed that the withdrawals were made using online banking. The IP address traces back to your apartment building's Wi-Fi network. I didn't do it. I know, but someone in your building did, using a computer connected to that network. Patricia has been visiting you regularly for 3 years. She had access, opportunity, and motive. The problem is proving it. I thought about my old laptop that I barely used anymore. Patricia could have used it any time I stepped out to get mail or visit a neighbor. But proving she did it versus me doing it while supposedly in a dementia-induced state would be nearly impossible. So what's our move? Yes. Because right now she's winning. Maria smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Now we use the fact that she doesn't know what we know. And we set a trap. Over the next 2 hours, Maria laid out the plan. It was risky, possibly dangerous, but it was the only way to get Patricia to reveal herself. And it required something I'd been avoiding, confronting Kevin and determining once and for all where his loyalties truly lay. At 4 o'clock, I called Kevin from a burner phone Maria had purchased. Helen. Oh, thank God. Where are you? The police. I know about the warrant, Kevin. I need you to listen very carefully. I know the truth about everything. The fake lawsuit, the shell company, Patricia's brother. I know she's been lying to both of us. Silence then. How did you? It doesn't matter. What matters is whether you're going to help me stop her or keep protecting her. Helen, I don't know what to believe anymore. Patricia says you're paranoid, that the stress has made you unstable. Kevin, listen to your own words. Patricia says, when did you stop trusting your own judgment? When did you start letting someone else tell you what reality is? More silence. I could hear him breathing, imagined him running his hand through his hair the way he did when stressed. What do you want me to do? He finally asked. I want you to arrange a family meeting tomorrow evening at my apartment. Tell Patricia I've agreed to sign over power of attorney and sell my share of the building, but I want to do it properly, with everyone present. Tell her I'm tired of running, that I want this resolved peacefully. She'll never believe that. She'll believe it because it's what she wants to believe. She thinks she's won, Kevin. Let her think she's right. And then what? Then we show her exactly how wrong she is. After we hung up, Maria nodded approvingly. Good. Now for the hard part. We need evidence that will hold up in court. Everything we have so far is circumstantial. We need her to incriminate herself directly. The recording from the diner shows Kevin was manipulated, but not direct proof of Patricia's crimes. We need more. She pulled out a small device that looked like a button. This is a video camera. It broadcasts to secure cloud storage and to my phone in real time. Tomorrow at your apartment you'll wear this on your shirt. No matter what happens, keep it pointed at Patricia. You'll be there. I'll be parked outside with the police chief and a state investigator I trust. The moment we have what we need, they'll move in. What if she gets violent? What if she has a weapon? Maria met my eyes. That's the risk. But Mrs. Carter, this is the only way to end this. She's backed you into a corner where you're wanted by police, branded as dangerous and mentally ill, with your entire life in jeopardy. If we don't stop her tomorrow, you lose everything. Your freedom, your home, possibly your life. That night I barely slept again. I kept thinking about George, about the secrets he'd kept, the divorce he'd never mentioned, the son he'd left behind. Had he been running from responsibility? Or had he simply been too young and scared to be a father? I'd never know his reasons now, but I could acknowledge the complexity of his choices while not excusing them. But I also thought about the life we'd built together, the home we'd made, the community we'd been part of, the quiet moments reading books side by side. Those memories were real, whatever else had been complicated or hidden. And I wasn't going to let Patricia take them from me. The next day moved slowly. Maria reviewed the plan a dozen times, making sure I understood every step. At 6 o'clock, we drove to within 2 blocks of my apartment building and stopped. The police chief's car and an unmarked state vehicle were already waiting. You're sure about this? Maria asked one more time. I checked that the camera button was secure on my cardigan, that my phone was charged and set to record audio as backup. I'm sure. Remember, stay calm no matter what she says. Don't let her make you angry or scared. We need her to feel confident, in control. That's when people make mistakes. I walked the last 2 blocks slowly. My hands were steady despite the adrenaline flooding my system. I'd spent my entire career managing classrooms full of 6-year-olds. I could handle one greedy sociopath. The apartment building looked normal in the early evening light, the way it always did in November. Kevin's car and Patricia's silver Honda were already parked in the visitor spaces. I walked to the entrance and used my key. My hands didn't shake. Kevin opened my apartment door before I could unlock it. His eyes were red, his face showing he hadn't slept. Helen. Hello, Kevin. I stepped inside, seeing Patricia standing in my living room, perfectly dressed in an expensive-looking blue suit. She looked like she was going to a business meeting, not a confrontation. Helen. She moved forward with arms out as if to hug me. I stepped back. Let's skip the pretending, Patricia. We all know why we're here. Her smile didn't change, but something cold showed in her eyes. Of course. You're here to finally do the smart thing and protect what's left of your assets before this legal mess destroys everything. The legal mess you created. Now, Helen, I understand you're upset. You've been under enormous stress, and at your age with your health problems. I don't have health problems. You forged medical documents to make it appear I do. Patricia laughed, a tinkling sound that was probably meant to seem indulgent. Kevin, you see. This is exactly what I was telling you about. The paranoia, the accusations. It's heartbreaking. I turned to Kevin. Did you do what I asked? Did you look into Michael Brennan? He nodded slowly. I called the law firm supposedly representing him. They've never heard of him or any lawsuit. Patricia's smile tightened just a little. That doesn't mean anything. There are multiple firms involved. There are no firms because there's no lawsuit, I interrupted. Michael Brennan exists, but he has no claim on anything. George's first marriage was legally ended in 1974. You made up the entire crisis to manipulate Kevin into helping you steal from me. That's absurd. But her voice had lost its warmth. Kevin, don't listen to her. She's clearly having an episode. An episode. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder Maria had sent me. Is this an episode? These documents showing the loan company is owned by your brother. Or this one showing you were investigated for elder abuse in connection with your first husband's death. Patricia's face went white, then red. You have no right to dig into my personal history. You forged my signature on loan documents. You tried to have me locked up. You stole from an animal shelter and framed me for it. I have every right. Prove it. She stepped closer, and for the first time I saw the real Patricia. Cold, calculating, dangerous. You can't prove any of that. It's your word against mine. And you're the one with a warrant out for your arrest. You're the one who's been declared mentally incompetent. You're the one who ran away from medical care. Because you manufactured all of it. Did I? Or are you a confused old woman who can't accept that she's losing her mind? Patricia turned to Kevin. This is what I've been trying to tell you. She's delusional. She needs professional help, not encouragement. Kevin looked between us, clearly torn. Patricia, some of what Helen is saying, the investigator found actual documents. Forged by her lawyer, obviously. They're trying to discredit me because they know I have proof of her incompetence. Patricia pulled out her phone. I have recordings, Kevin. Recordings of Helen having confused episodes, talking to George as if he were still alive, forgetting what day it is. My blood went cold. You recorded me in my own apartment. I recorded a woman who was clearly suffering, yes, for her own protection. Patricia held up the phone. Should I play them? Let Kevin hear how far gone you really are. Play them, I said, my voice steady despite the fear rushing through me. Let's all hear them. Patricia's thumb stopped over the screen. Then she smiled. Actually, I don't think so. I don't want to embarrass you more than necessary. Let's just move forward with the paperwork. You sign over power of attorney, we sell your apartment share, and everyone gets what they need. You can live comfortably in a nice facility, where you can control my money and wait for me to die, where you can receive proper care. Her voice rose, the mask slipping further. You ungrateful woman. Do you know how much I've done for you? How much I've sacrificed? This apartment should have been sold 2 years ago. It's wasted on you, sitting here alone like some pathetic widow, clinging to memories of a man who lied to you for 40 years. So you decided to steal it instead. I decided to save it. To save Kevin from having to watch you deteriorate. To save this family from financial ruin when your medical bills start piling up. She was shouting now, all pretense of concern gone. You think you're so smart, but you're just a foolish old woman who doesn't know when she's beaten. I know exactly when I'm beaten, I said quietly. And this isn't it. I looked at Kevin. You've heard her. You've seen who she really is. Now choose. Kevin's face showed devastation. But when he spoke, his voice was clear. Patricia, I want you to leave. What? Get out of this apartment. Get away from Helen. We're done. Patricia laughed, but it sounded brittle now. You can't be serious, Kevin. Everything I did was for us, for our future. You forged documents. You tried to have Helen locked up. You stole from an animal shelter. Kevin's voice broke. How could you think I'd be okay with any of that? Because you're weak. The words exploded from her. You've always been weak. You would never have had the courage to secure what should be ours. I did what you were too spineless to do. Secure what should be ours, I repeated. This apartment was never yours, Patricia. It was never going to be yours. It will be when you're locked away in a psychiatric hospital. Or better yet. She stopped herself, but not quickly enough. Or better yet, what? Press. When I'm dead. You can't prove anything. But her voice was panicked now. You're just a confused old woman with paranoid delusions. Am I? I touched the camera button on my cardigan. Because this device has been recording everything you've said for the past 20 minutes. Every threat, every admission, every moment of your mask slipping. Patricia's face went from red to white. That's illegal. It's completely legal in Tennessee. One-party consent. I walked to the window and gestured. Down the street, I could see the flashing lights approaching. And those police officers who are about to arrive have been watching a live feed of every word you've said. The color drained from Patricia's face completely. She lunged for my phone, but Kevin caught her arm. Don't, he said, and there was steel in his voice I'd never heard before. It's over, Patricia. She pulled free and ran for the door, but it opened before she reached it. Police Chief Harrison stood there, Maria beside him, with 2 state investigators behind them. Patricia Martinez, Chief Harrison said, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, and theft. You have the right to remain silent. As they led her away in handcuffs, she screamed at Kevin. You'll regret this. You're giving up hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. For what? For her. For what's right, Kevin said quietly. After she was gone, the apartment fell silent except for the sound of Kevin crying. I went to him, my friend's son, and held him the way I had when he was small and the world had hurt him. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I'm so sorry, Helen. I should have known. I should have trusted you. Hush, I said, stroking his hair. You're here now. That's what matters. Maria approached us, professional but with warmth in her eyes. Mrs. Carter, we have enough evidence to prosecute Patricia on multiple felonies. The shelter theft, the forged signatures, the identity fraud. She's looking at serious prison time. And we can get the false charges against you dropped immediately. And the apartment, it's yours. It always was. The fraudulent loan will be invalidated. And any claims against the property will be dismissed. Pause. You won, Mrs. Carter. You beat her. I looked around my home, the place George and I had made, the life we'd built. It would stay safe. It would endure. No, I said. We all won. Truth won. For weeks later, I stood on the small balcony of my apartment, watching the sun rise over the neighborhood. The November air had given way to December's cold, and frost sparkled on the cars below like scattered diamonds. Everything looked the same as it always had, yet everything felt different. The legal proceedings had moved quickly once the evidence was presented. Patricia faced 17 felony counts, including fraud, forgery, identity theft, and elder abuse. Her brother, caught up in the loan scheme, had been arrested in New Mexico. The animal shelter had dropped all charges against me once computer analysis of my laptop proved that someone else, Patricia, had accessed the accounts using stolen passwords. The warrant for my arrest had been cancelled, and the fake medical documents had been formally withdrawn by the clinic after Dr. Bennett discovered his signature had been forged. My name was clear. My home was secure. I had won. But victory, I'd learned, often tastes more complicated than sweet. The screen door slid open behind me, and Kevin came out, carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate. He'd been staying in a hotel nearby for the past 3 weeks, coming by every day to help me sort through the aftermath. We moved around each other carefully, like people learning to trust again, rebuilding connection one small gesture at a time. Thought you might need this, he said, handing me a mug. Thank you. I wrapped my hands around the warmth. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, all the times I chose to believe her instead of questioning what I was seeing. We'd had versions of this conversation multiple times over the past weeks. Kevin's guilt was a living thing between us, something he carried like a physical burden. Part of me wanted to absolve him completely, to say it wasn't his fault. But the larger part, the part that had raised children to be accountable, knew he needed to carry some of that weight. Not as punishment but as growth. You loved her, I said. Love makes us vulnerable to manipulation. That's not weakness, Kevin. That's being human. But you're my mother's best friend. I should have trusted you over her, always. Yes, I agreed simply. You should have. He flinched, but I saw something in his expression shift. Acceptance, maybe, or the beginning of it. Truth sometimes hurts more than comfort, but heals better. Maria called yesterday, Kevin said after a moment. Patricia's lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea deal. 6 years instead of 10. What did she recommend? She said it's up to us. The prosecutor will defer to our wishes since we're the victims. Kevin looked at me. What do you think? I sipped my hot chocolate, considering. Vengeance would be easy. I could demand the maximum sentence, could take satisfaction in knowing Patricia would spend years behind bars. But would that heal anything? Would it repair what had been broken? I think 6 years is sufficient, I said finally. She'll be in her early 40s when she's released, still young enough to build a different life if she chooses, old enough to understand consequences. Kevin nodded slowly. You're more merciful than I am. I want her to suffer. Because you're angry at yourself and projecting it onto her. I turned to face him. Kevin, Patricia made her own choices. She chose greed over integrity, manipulation over honesty. Those were her decisions. But you also made choices. To trust without verifying, to accept easy explanations instead of asking hard questions, to prioritize your marriage over your relationship with me. Those were your choices. Own them, learn from them, but don't confuse the two. His eyes welled with tears. I don't know how to make this right. You start by being honest with yourself, with me, with whatever comes next. I set down my hot chocolate and took his hand. And you accept that some things can't be made right immediately. They take time. Trust takes time. Do you trust me now? I considered lying, offering him the comfort of false reassurance. But we'd had enough lies. I'm working toward it. Ask me again in 6 months. He nodded, accepting the boundary I'd drawn. That, more than anything else, gave me hope. Later that morning, Maria Santos arrived with a thick folder of documents. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where George and I had paid bills, where Kevin had done homework as a boy, where our little community had shared countless meals. Now it became the place where we settled accounts. First order of business, Maria said, spreading papers before us. The fraudulent loan has been officially voided. The property title is clear. Second, we've recovered about 60% of the stolen shelter funds from Patricia's accounts. The shelter board has agreed not to pursue the remainder, given the circumstances. I'll make up the difference, Kevin said immediately. It's my responsibility. I started to argue, but Maria held up her hand. Actually, that's already been discussed. The shelter board met last week and agreed that Kevin should contribute to a restitution fund over time, not immediately. They don't want to financially devastate you. They want accountability and growth. How much? Kevin asked. $300 a month for 20 months. $6,000 total, which covers the shortfall and acknowledges your role in enabling Patricia's access to Helen's life. Kevin swallowed hard but nodded. That's fair. Third item, Maria continued. The matter of Michael Brennan. Mrs. Carter, I took the liberty of locating George's son. He lives in Oregon now, married with 3 grown children of his own. He never knew his father died. I've prepared a letter explaining the situation and offering to facilitate contact if you're willing. My chest tightened. George's son, the child he'd left behind, who'd grown up without him while I had his complete attention and love. The unfairness of it struck me anew. What does he know about George? Yes. Very little. His mother told him that George was young and scared when he was born, that he left when Michael was 4, and that they never heard from him again. He's not bitter, or at least his response to my initial contact didn't suggest bitterness. He's curious. I thought about George, about the man I'd known and loved. Had he been running from responsibility, or had he simply been too young and overwhelmed to handle fatherhood? I'd never know his reasons now, but I could honor the complexity of his choices while not excusing them. Send the letter, I decided. And tell him he's welcome to visit if he wants to know more about his father. I'll answer any questions he has honestly. Kevin looked at me in surprise. You'd do that? After everything? He's George's son, Kevin. And he's a part of George's story that we never knew existed. If he wants connection, I won't deny him that out of pride or hurt. Maria made a note. I'll arrange it. Final item, your will and estate planning. Given recent events, I strongly recommend updating your documents to include safeguards against future exploitation attempts. We spent the next hour reviewing options. Trusts, co-trustees, medical directives with multiple witnesses required. The legal machinery designed to protect vulnerable people from predators like Patricia. It was depressing and necessary in equal measure. As Maria was packing up to leave, she paused. Mrs. Carter, I wanted to say something. In my 25 years practicing law, I've seen dozens of elder exploitation cases. Most of them end badly. The victim loses everything or dies before justice can be served, or the family fractures beyond repair. What you did, keeping your head, gathering evidence, trusting the right people at the right time, that was remarkable. You saved yourself through intelligence and courage. That's rare. I had help, I said, thinking of Nurse Rodriguez, of Maria herself, of Grace offering sanctuary without questions. You had help because you recognized who to trust and who to suspect. That's wisdom, Mrs. Carter. That's the advantage of 67 years of living and observing and learning. She smiled. Don't discount that. Your age wasn't a weakness for Patricia to exploit. It was your greatest weapon. After she left, I sat alone in the kitchen for a long time, thinking about her words. Society tells us that aging means decline, losing sharpness, losing relevance, becoming vulnerable and dependent. Patricia had counted on those assumptions. She'd built her entire scheme on the idea that I was too old, too confused, too easily controlled. She'd been wrong. I was 67 years old. Society had tried to tell me that made me vulnerable, easy to control, past my usefulness. Patricia had believed it. Even Kevin, in his way, had believed it. But I'd learned something that age teaches and youth rarely understands. Strength isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet and patient. Sometimes it's knowing when to trust your instincts, when to ask for help, when to gather evidence instead of confronting directly. Sometimes strength looks like an elderly woman who's lived long enough to recognize manipulation, brave enough to fight back, and wise enough to do it intelligently. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Nurse Maria Rodriguez standing on the threshold, looking nervous but determined. Mrs. Carter, I hope it's okay that I came by. I wanted to check on you and I brought something. She held up a small gift bag. Maria, please come in. I've been meaning to call you and thank you properly. We sat in the living room, and she pulled out what looked like a journal from the bag. I know this might seem strange, but I kept notes during everything that happened. Not just at the clinic, but afterward, the news reports, the trial proceedings, the resolution. I thought you might want a record of it all, written from an outside perspective. I opened the journal and saw her neat handwriting chronicling the events of the past month. The warning she'd given me, the risks she'd taken, the outcome. Why did you do it? Yes. You could have lost your job. You could have been sued. Maria's expression was solemn. My grandmother died in a nursing home 4 years ago. She'd been placed there by her daughter-in-law against her will, declared incompetent when she was perfectly sound. By the time we figured out what was happening, she'd given up. She died 7 months later, not from illness but from heartbreak and helplessness. I promised myself I'd never stand by and watch that happen to someone else if I could prevent it. I reached across and squeezed her hand. "Your grandmother would be proud of you." "I hope so." She smiled, blinking back tears. "And I hope you know that what you did, fighting back, refusing to be victimized, that matters. That gives other people hope." After Maria left, I walked through my apartment slowly, room by room. This place held 5 years of memories after George's death. Quiet evenings, book club meetings, friendships formed. But it also held new memories now. Betrayal discovered, courage found, justice achieved. The apartment felt different because I was different. I'd been tested in ways I'd never imagined, forced to question everything I'd believed about my neighbors, my security, my own judgment. And I'd emerged not unscathed. There were scars now, places where trust had been cut away and would grow back differently, but whole. Kevin found me standing by George's desk, looking at the empty drawers that had started this entire nightmare. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About secrets," I said. "About how George kept his past hidden because he was ashamed or scared or both. About how those secrets almost destroyed everything." "Are you angry at him?" I considered the question honestly. No. Disappointed, maybe. Sad for the son he abandoned and the full truth he never trusted me with. But George was human, and humans are complicated. He made mistakes. But he also gave me 42 years of love and partnership. I can hold both truths at once. Kevin moved to stand beside me. "I found something when I was cleaning my storage unit yesterday. A box of letters George wrote to my mom when they were young, before either of them got married. I didn't read them, they're private, but I thought you might want them." He handed me a shoebox tied with faded ribbon. I opened it carefully and saw George's familiar handwriting on envelope after envelope, letters from when he was young and starting fresh. I pulled out one at random and read, "Martha, you and Robert make me believe in fresh starts. Whatever I was before, whoever I was, I want to be better now. I want to be the kind of man who deserves friends like you. The kind of man who can build something good." My eyes filled with tears. He'd been telling them even then that he had a past he was leaving behind. They'd been young and optimistic enough to accept it without question. "Thank you for finding these," I told Kevin. I think I needed to remember who he was trying to be, not just who he'd been. We stood together in silence for a moment. Two people learning to be family again, learning to forgive. "Helen," Kevin said quietly, "do you think you'll ever forgive me completely?" I turned to look at him. This man who'd wounded me so deeply and was working so hard to make amends. "I think forgiveness isn't a destination, Kevin. It's a practice, something we choose every day. And today I choose it." He hugged me then, and I let him, feeling the shape of the adult man in my arms and remembering the boy he'd been. People change. People grow. People make terrible mistakes. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes they learn from them. That evening, as the sun set over the neighborhood, I sat in my favorite chair with a blanket and George's letters. I read through his early attempts at a fresh start, remembering the hope and possibility of those days. The man who'd written these letters had been running from his past, yes, but also running toward something better. He'd chosen this town, chosen these friendships, chosen to become someone new. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Acknowledge the past without being destroyed by it, make better choices going forward, and trust that wisdom comes not from never making mistakes but from learning from them. I was 67 years old. Patricia had thought that made me weak. She'd learned too late that it made me dangerous. And that, I thought with quiet satisfaction, was exactly as it should be. Now, tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.